The Poetry Cafe, once a relic of the 50s beat generation, is back. In places like the Nuyorican Poets Cafe on Manhattan's Lower East Side, poetry is taking on the language of the streets as poets perform for audiences in scored competitions called slams. Joining us to shed some light on this phenomenon are Bob Holman, co-director and MC at the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, poet Maggie Estep, Edwin Torres, who has won the cafe's Fresh Poetry Award, and Dana Bryant, who is also a poet. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have all of you.
Thanks.
Tell me, elaborate on what I just said in terms of what's going on and what happens.
The Nuyorican Poets Cafe is the Lower East Side's manifestation of the current new poetry. It stretches from coast to coast, from cowboy poets to cyberpunk poets. And in our urban areas, it's caught on with this form called the slam.
Yeah. And what is a slam?
A slam.
A slam.
A slam is the Poetry Olympics.
Yeah.
We like to think of it as a mock competition.
Right.
At the cafe. The poet will read a poem which is then rated by a judge, a whimsically selected judge in the audience. Or actually, there are 5 judges who rate the poem between 0, a poem that should never have been written, and 10, a transcendent poem.
Transcending poem. All right. And this happens every night?
Every Friday night.
And who votes?
We have 5 judges who, as I say, are selected whimsically from the audience. One of the strong qualifications for being a judge is that you have never attended a slam before.
All right. Now, can we show and give an example of the kind of thing that might take place?
We've got with us a couple of our current Grand Slammers.
Oh, well, a Grand Slam is what?
That's after you slam, you come back for a semifinals and finally the Grand Slam, and after that you go to the Nationals, which will be held in Boston in October. But Maggie Estep and Dana Bryant are both slam champions.
Can we hear some of your repertoire? Would we say?
Why not?
Why not? Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Maggie.
Okay, this is called Sex Goddess of the Western Hemisphere. I am the sex goddess of the Western Hemisphere, so don't mess with me. I got a big bag full of sex toys, and you can't have any, 'cause they're all mine, 'cause I'm the sex goddess of the Western Hemisphere. I haven't always been like this. I used to be just a mere mortal woman. But I grew tired of the pathological implications of sexuality as they manifest in our culture today. I grew tired of the late-night 900 number ads where 3 bodacious bimbettes heave cleavage into the camera's winking lens and sigh. Big girls, ooh, bad girls, ooh, blonde girls, ooh, you know what to do. Call 1-900 unmitigated bimbo, ooh, yeah, I got fed up with the ooh, 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 ooh. I got fed up with it all, and I put on my combat boots and hit the road with my bag full of sex toys that were a vital part of my sex goddess image, even though I would never actually use my sex toys, because my being a sex goddess, it's not a sexual thing, it's a political thing. I'm a political sex goddess. I don't actually have sex. I'm too busy taking care of important sex goddess business. Yeah, I gotta go on Dennis Miller and Donahue and Charlie Rose. I gotta make buckets full of money off my own inane brand of self-righteous pop psychology, because my pain is different, because I am a goddess, and when I talk, people listen. Why? Because you guessed it, I am the sex goddess of the Western Hemisphere, and you're not.
All right. All right.
Tenor.
A tenor?
Yeah.
That's a tenor. Oh, yeah, transcending.
Yeah.
It's transcending. Dana.
Sure. This poem is called Can't Be Music and was originally inspired by Shaka Khan, my favorite pop star. Electric lady, knife in the curtain open with bejeweled fingers. Her head laden with citrus-sweetened hairs, Medusian ropes swinging hot embers, hennaed bells. Her lips plentiful, small, soft and smacking, sweet badasses. Tell me something good. Her stomach stripped of all but bronze blue flesh, beaded rings of baby peacock feathers. Her hips swaying chains of lilies laced with sensimelia. Mary, do you wanna funk with me? Her crotch exploding light, raining salt and flame on open, misted faces. She bodacious. She be Jungle Bunny Bessie Smith Demon S, howling at the moon. She be the voodoo child Jimi Hendrix plucks strings to conjure up. She be the brass ring my mama said good colored girls must not reach for. She be the Circe that esoteric nut dame tell me is too much. She too Literal, she too extreme, much too seamy, much too obscene. I say scream, sister. Your Ward 8 sensibility speaks to me. Praise the day I first heard your illicit moans ring stereo in smoke-filled blue-lit basements when my daddy said, she can't be music. Give Charlie Mingus some play. Make room for Charlie Mingus. Ring in the new year with Nat King Cole. Say, can't be music? If she rushes in deep my well like poetry, like sweat, like semen, like spit, like your bloody face rebounding one more time off the blows of a so-called black-faced bimbo, broke down from wailing new blues, broke down from wailing out beyond the image to me. Can't be music?
Very good. Yeah. All right. Now Edwin is going to give us some poetry, or?
I don't know. I'm going to give it away.
No, I know.
Oh, now this is the official poetry segment.
Yeah,
here.
yeah, this is. That's right.
Okay, this is Babies Infantatasi. Babies Infantatasi. In her baby's infancy, fantasies counted her toes in fountains of babies in fantasies. Count her little toes and see if there isn't a story in every infantastical little toes. Tickle little toes, tickle little toes and see if baby's fantasy, if baby's fantasy isn't yours.
Very good. All right. Yeah, this happens every Friday night, the contest. These are all of them Grand Slam winners?
So Maggie is, and Dana is, and Edwin is the winner of what we call the Fresh Poetry Award at the cafe.
Now, do you guys think of yourselves as performance artists, whatever that means, or poets? Poets who simply view this cafe
I think artists.
Artists,
yeah, and the artist is a part, and the oratory is part of the art, and the visual is part of the art, and it's communication.
Yeah.
And this one is taking poetry off the page and into the minds and hearts of people, that direct communication thing, that's what I like, the communion between me and the audience. Because I think formerly when people just were introduced to poetry on the page, it was more about a private communion that they had with who they thought the artist might be, and now this is like more than one person, it's several.
Did you want to be a poet? I mean, did it begin with wanting to be a poet, or?
I'd always had it. When I first saw Tazaki Shange's for Colored Girls on Broadway, I thought, as a kid, that's what I want to do. I mean, I didn't know exactly what it was, because it wasn't what I'd understood to be poetry.
But
because it was a mixture of everything, poetry, music, dance.
Maggie?
Yeah. Well, I danced and did all these different things, and then just stumbled on it by accident. I write. I've always written fiction, and then it just sort of clicked when I got in front of people.
And where does it go? What happens to most of the people who are successful and?
This is just beginning. We're at the very beginning of the beginning with this. I think that what's
We're at the beginning of the beginning.
Just started.
Yeah.
The rap has revolutionized
the
listening to language in our country. Now you can dance to poetry. It's now that there is a movement now for an individual voice to be heard through the pasteurization of language. It happens because of the mass media. That happens because of the commercialization of language. It's being bought and sold. It doesn't mean anymore. And what these poets are doing is putting the meaning back into the word.
I'm pleased and flattered you've come here to join me on this broadcast. Thank you very much for sharing the poetry with us. Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. See you.
Drunk at 4 in the morning, my friend Eddie and I are sitting in this girl's apartment watching a Depeche Mode video.
Welcome to the New Eurekan Poets Cafe. These people are here for some serious poetry.
Dancing with the ghost of your family, you feel small again.
It's called a poetry slam. Bob Holman, himself a poet, is the master of ceremonies.
A poetry slam is a mock competitive Olympic-style poetry event with judges who sit in the audience and score each of the poems. What happens at the cafe on Friday nights late is the entire house full of people are listening to poetry of different varieties and listening very carefully.
Layers of retrieval to be done. Layers of retrieval to be done.
Just like beatnik poets of the 1950s, today's poets are packing people in. Often there's no rhyme, but there is a reason.
Here you can have a great time and not have to turn your mind off while you're doing that. It's something different, it's something new, and it might be you.
You turn to find it like a fish or wallet, and everyone, even the dog of your past, knows exactly what to call you. Thank you.
Poetry. You know, when many of us think of poetry, we remember being forced to read it in school. We thought it was probably dull, hard to understand, so we avoided it. It seems about the only people who were reading poetry were the so-called beatniks of the 50s and 60s, but when they faded out, so it seems poetry did as well. But poetry is back in motion, and it's coming to a living room near you.
Lobster I freely endorse in pate or patty or pasty, but there's nothing the matter with butter, and nothing the matter with jam, and the warmest of greetings I utter to the ham and the yam and the clam, for their food, all food, and I think very highly of food.
All you have to do is turn on your television. That's right, no going to the library or bookstore. Poetry is now on video cassette. Off the Page, the first poetry magazine on home video. Recently, a party at a Midtown bookstore introduced the public to Off the Page. Poets were among those watching as the first issue of the magazine was played on television screens. Off the Page features some of America's top poets. New York actor and poet Norman Rhodes is the creator. But why a video poetry magazine?
There are a lot of audio tapes of poets reading their things, but as far as I knew, there was no place where the poet could be seen performing his poems.
When I leap, a note cuts through glass. When I leap, a thick finger dreams on a bass string, and all that sweat, all that spittle.
It's about jazz dancing. Interestingly enough, it comes from watching a PBS special about jazz dancing and seeing somebody actually just moving in space and time, and I said, oh, that's wonderful. I want to get some language about that.
Which is more avant-garde, a giraffe or an elephant?
A giraffe is more avant-garde.
But an elephant is more surreal.
Plays and poetry also will be a regular feature on Off the Page, as will articles and Pulitzer Prize-winning poets.
I'm out looking to hang with the fellas on 9th Street. Sell an ounce of 4 for 4 a.m.
Old forms for poems are making comebacks as the public's interest in poetry is renewed. Readings at cafes and coffee houses are going on all around our area. Nuyorican Poets Cafe in the East Village is especially popular because of its Friday night poetry slam, a contest between poets. Some of them come from the audience.
And she laughed and laughed and laughed.
Perhaps we'll have 3 or 4 poets get up, one at a time, and they'll trade poems with each other. And then we select judges from our audience. They'll decide how they like the poems, and they'll score the poems 0 to 10.
Oh, you 9XAT&T sprinting down the matrix. Whip me, Lash. Whip me. Oh, how could you forget such a simple 7 numbers? The 5s, the 3s, the 8s, and 2s, and 6s. How?
Now, I'd give it a 10, but what does the audience think?
7.26, 5.75 from Big Wayne. I guess Wayne tried to dial that number in reverse.
The scores are totaled. The poet with the highest score at the end of the slam session wins $10.
Where freedom of speech chants, you have the right to offend, you have the left to fend off ghosts and devils and roles of she or any variety. Home.
Poetry Slam is not the only thing that we do here. We do theater. We have musical groups here. And we have featured poets from across the country, around the city, all over the world. We've had poets here from China, from Russia, from all over Europe, and we welcome them. This is a house of poetry and theater.
Some of the talent that's come through the doors of this house of poetry and theater have gone to the big time. writing and producing work on and off Broadway.
It's a great setting because the audience is very receptive, and it's a very classy bohemian place, so it allows you to kind of let loose and trip and capture a moment, whatever. I mean, poetry is moment, so this is a great place for the moment to happen.
If you want to check out some other places where moments happen, look in the New York Poetry Calendar. It lists locations of poetry readings. And you can get the calendar at Poets House, a non-profit organization dedicated to poetry. Poets House is located at 72 Spring Street in Lower Manhattan.
Do you remember the first time? Steve Hartman's on the cutting edge. Next on Eyewitness News Magazine.